The rain fell like bullets on Chicago's Gold Coast, turning the summer evening into a storm of water and wind. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the Walker estate, a fortress of stone and iron that had never been breached in 15 years. Damon Walker stood in his study, staring at the only photograph he kept visible. Crystal Reeves, auburn hair falling over bare shoulders, fingers poised above piano keys, eyes closed in concentration. The Drake Hotel, 3 months before she vanished. 487 days since the accident report. Closed casket. No body recovered. Damon had investigated, found nothing. Crystal was dead, and it was his fault for loving her. The intercom buzzed. Marcus Webb's voice came through, tense. "Boss, situation at the front gate." "Handle it." "It's a kid. 8 years old. Been standing in the rain for 20 minutes. Won't leave. Says she needs to see Damon Walker. About her mother." Damon was already moving. Down marble stairs, through the grand hall, where Crystal's portrait hung like an altar, into the rain without a coat. Security lights illuminated the gate in harsh white brilliance. A small figure pressed against iron bars, soaked to the bone. Dark hair plastered to her skull. Thin jacket useless against the downpour. Torn sneakers. She clutched something against her chest, protecting it while shivering violently. Damon's feet stopped moving. The girl lifted her face, and the world tilted sideways. Dark eyes. Not Crystal's ocean blue. Dark brown, almost black, staring at him with an intensity no child should possess. The same eyes Damon saw in the mirror every morning. The same stubborn set to her jaw. The same widow's peak in her hairline. "Open the gate," Damon said, his voice raw. The guard hesitated. "Sir." "Now." The electronic lock clicked. The girl pushed through before the gate fully opened, stumbling on slick pavement. Damon caught her shoulders. She was real, solid, shaking but refusing to cry. "Sir," the girl said, voice trembling but clear. "Why is my mother's picture in your house?" Damon's hands tightened on her shoulders. "What?" She shifted what she held. A wooden music box, ornate and old. "Mom said if anything bad happened, find Damon Walker. Big house with iron gates. Picture of her playing piano inside. Are you him?" Thunder crashed directly overhead. The girl flinched but didn't look away. "Who's your mother?" "Crystal Reeves. She's been missing 21 days. The rain kept falling. Damon stopped feeling it. "Crystal is alive?" The girl nodded, water dripping from her chin. "She was, 3 weeks ago. Bad men came and took her. She told me to hide in the closet until they left. If she didn't come back by morning, find you." Damon stared at this impossible child. 9 years ago, he'd spent 6 months with Crystal before breaking it off, telling her his world was too dangerous. He thought he'd saved her. "What's your name?" The girl lifted her chin higher. Diana Reeves." She paused, dark eyes searching his face. "And I think you might be my dad." Welcome to Redemption Road, where the most dangerous men discover that real strength isn't measured by how many enemies fear you. It's measured by whether you're brave enough to fight for the people who need you most. If you believe in second chances and love that refuses to die, even after years of silence, hit that subscribe button and like this video. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community around the world. Now let's find out what happens when a mafia boss discovers the daughter he never knew existed. Damon dropped to his knees on the wet pavement, bringing himself eye level with the child. For the first time in 15 years of ruling Chicago's underworld, the wolf bowed before someone. "Come inside," he said quietly. "We need to talk." Diana studied his face with those unsettling dark eyes, his eyes, and finally nodded. Damon stood, shrugged off his jacket despite being soaked through, and wrapped it around her shoulders. It swallowed her whole, but at least the interior was still dry. He led her through the front doors into the grand hall. Marcus stood waiting with 3 security guards, all of them staring at the dripping child like she was a live grenade. Diana stopped walking the moment she saw the portrait. "That's Mom." She walked toward the massive painting as if drawn by invisible strings, stood beneath it, water pooling at her feet, staring up at Crystal's captured smile. Then she turned to look at Damon, and there were tears mixing with rain on her face now. "You loved her," Diana said. It wasn't a question. Damon's throat closed tight. He managed one word. "Yes." "Then why did you leave her?" The question was a knife between his ribs. "I thought I was protecting her." Diana shook her head slowly, looking older than her 8 years. "Mom said you were wrong. She said you were stupid and stubborn and afraid. But she also said you were good. She said underneath everything scary, you had the kindest heart she ever knew." Damon felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd kept locked and buried since the night he watched Crystal walk away crying, convinced he was saving her life by breaking her heart. "Diana," he said carefully, "I need you to tell me everything, starting with why you think I'm your father." The girl looked down at the music box still clutched in her small hands. "Because Mom told me. On the night the bad men came, before she made me hide, she gave me this. She said if she didn't come back by morning, I had to bring it to you. She said you'd understand when you saw it. She said you'd protect me. Because even though you think you failed everyone you ever loved, you never actually did." Damon's hands were shaking as he crossed to the girl and knelt again. He gently took the music box from her. The wood was worn smooth from years of handling. He recognized it immediately. He'd bought it for Crystal on their 3rd date, from an antique shop in Wicker Park. She'd fallen in love with the delicate craftsmanship, said it reminded her of her grandmother's treasures. He opened the lid with trembling fingers. A delicate melody filled the hall. Tchaikovsky's June from the Seasons, Crystal's favorite piece. The one she played when she was sad, when she was lonely, when she missed someone. Nestled in the velvet interior was a ring. White gold, single diamond, elegant and simple. The engagement ring Damon had carried in his pocket for 2 weeks, 9 years ago, working up the courage to propose. The ring he'd returned to the jeweler the same day he broke up with Crystal, telling himself it was for her own good. Except somehow, she'd gotten it anyway. Diana watched him lift the ring with trembling fingers, the metal catching the light. Mom wore it on a chain around her neck. She never took it off, not once. She told me that even though you two weren't together anymore, you were still the only man she'd ever love, and that I should be proud to have your eyes. Damon looked at the child standing before him. His child. Every instinct in his body confirmed it now, and felt 8 years of carefully constructed grief collapse into something new, something terrifying and precious and impossible to name. "How old are you, Diana?" 8. I'll be 9 in October. 9 years ago. The timeline fit perfectly. Crystal had been pregnant when he left her. She'd carried their baby alone, given birth alone, raised their daughter alone for 8 years. Never told him, never asked for help, never tried to drag him back into her life, because he'd told her his world was too dangerous for someone he loved. And now that world had found her anyway. Dr. Elena Rivera arrived within 20 minutes, medical bag in hand, and questions in her dark eyes. She'd been the Walker family physician for a decade, discreet and competent, asking nothing about the occasional bullet wounds she treated in the middle of the night. But this was different. This was a child. "She's yours," Elena said after the examination, not asking but confirming what she'd already seen in the matching bone structure, the identical eyes. Damon stood at the window of the guest suite, watching rain still falling outside. I didn't know she existed. And the mother? Kidnapped, 21 days ago. Elena absorbed this with the practiced calm of someone who'd seen too much working for the Walker family. The girl is healthy overall. Dehydrated, mild hypothermia from exposure, but nothing serious. However, she paused, choosing her words carefully. She's undernourished. Not severely, but chronically. The kind of malnutrition that comes from eating just enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. Skipped meals over months, maybe years. Something twisted violently in Damon's chest. Crystal. Working, struggling, probably going hungry so Diana could eat. She needs stability, Elena continued. Routine, proper nutrition, and eventually therapy. She's experienced significant trauma, her mother's kidnapping, but also whatever came before. Children who've lived with food insecurity develop anxiety that doesn't disappear overnight. She'll have everything she needs, Damon said flatly, a promise and a threat to the universe that had let his daughter go hungry. After Elena left with instructions for care and a prescription for children's vitamins, Damon found himself standing awkwardly in the guest suite doorway. Diana sat cross-legged on the massive bed, dwarfed by it, wearing borrowed pajamas that Marcus had somehow procured. They were too big, sleeves rolled up 3 times, pale blue fabric making her look even smaller. "Are you hungry?" Damon asked, the question feeling absurdly inadequate. She nodded, not meeting his eyes. The kitchen at nearly midnight was empty except for Marcus, who was making coffee with the intensity of a man trying to process impossible information through caffeine. Damon opened the industrial-sized refrigerator and stared at its contents, realizing with sudden panic that he had absolutely no idea what 8-year-olds ate. "What do you like?" he asked Diana, who'd followed him downstairs on silent feet. "Anything." That's not an answer. She bit her lip, and he saw Crystal in that gesture, the same nervous habit when she was uncertain. "Mom and I usually had whatever was on sale, or sometimes she brought home leftovers from the Palmer house." Damon's jaw clenched so hard he heard his teeth grind. The Palmer house? The hotel where she worked. She played piano in the lobby during dinner service. We lived in a studio apartment 6 blocks away in a bad building, but Mom said it was temporary. She was saving money. Diana's voice was matter-of-fact, reporting facts without asking for pity. "It was really small, but Mom made it nice. She hung Christmas lights year-round so it always felt cheerful, and she got me a purple rug from a thrift store that we put by my mattress so my feet wouldn't be cold in the morning." Damon imagined Crystal, who had once performed at the Drake, who'd had scholarship offers from Juilliard before her parents died in a car accident, who could have been playing concert halls, entertaining hotel guests who probably didn't even notice her, raising their daughter in a studio apartment in a bad building with thrift store rugs and Christmas lights to hide the poverty, all because he'd told her to stay away from him. "Grilled cheese?" he offered, the only thing he knew how to make that seemed remotely appropriate for a child. Diana's face transformed. "Really? With butter on the outside? Is there another way to make it?" She almost smiled, and it hit him like a fist to the sternum. She had Crystal's smile, tentative, hopeful, easily broken. He made 4 sandwiches, burning the first 2 badly before getting the technique right. Diana ate all 3 of the successful ones plus a bowl of strawberries that Marcus silently provided. She drank 2 full glasses of milk, and Damon watched the color slowly return to her cheeks, the shaking in her hands gradually subside. "Better?" he asked, when she finally pushed the empty plate away. She nodded, then yawned so widely her jaw cracked audibly. "Bed," Damon said, the command coming out gentler than he intended. Back in the guest suite, Diana climbed into the enormous bed and disappeared under the heavy comforter. Damon started to leave, then stopped when her small voice reached him. "Why didn't your mother ever tell me about you?" The question came out rough, almost angry. Diana peeked out from under the covers, dark eyes solemn. "She said your world was too dangerous, that you had enemies who would hurt me just to hurt you. She said she loved you too much to make you choose between keeping us safe and keeping us close. So she chose for you. She should have told me anyway. It should have been my choice. Maybe." Diana's voice was fierce despite her exhaustion, protective of her mother even now. But she did the best she could. Mom worked 2 jobs sometimes, played piano until her fingers bled and had to wrap them in bandages. She made sure I had everything I needed even when she didn't eat for a day so I could have lunch money for school. She read me stories every night, even when she was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. She's the bravest person I know. Damon's throat tightened painfully. "I know she is." "Then you'll find her? Really, truly find her?" "I swear it on my life." Diana studied him for a long moment, and he had the unsettling feeling of being assessed by someone far older than 8. "Mom said you always keep your promises, even the ones that hurt you. She said that's how she knew you were good, even when you were doing bad things, because you never broke your word." Before Damon could respond, Diana rolled over, tucking the music box under her pillow, and within minutes, her breathing had deepened into the heavy rhythm of exhausted sleep. Damon stood there in the doorway, watching this impossible child, his daughter, and felt the weight of 8 lost years crushing down on his chest. 8 years of her life he'd missed. First steps, first words, first day of school. 8 years of Crystal struggling alone while he'd been convinced she was dead, when really she'd been 6 blocks from the hotel where they first met, playing piano for strangers' dinners. Marcus appeared silently in the hallway. "Boss, we need to talk about Viktor Sokolov." They went to Damon's office, where Marcus spread files across the mahogany desk, intelligence gathered over 3 years of careful surveillance and mounting dread. Viktor Sokolov, 52 years old, Russian oligarch with legitimate businesses in real estate and import-export, and decidedly illegitimate ones in arms dealing and human trafficking. His younger brother, Alexei, had partnered with Damon 3 years ago on what should have been a straightforward weapons deal. When Alexei tried to double-cross him, delivering faulty merchandise while pocketing the difference, Damon had done what had to be done. Clean, quick, necessary. Viktor had vanished after the funeral, sending one message through channels. "You took my blood. I will take everything you love. When you least expect it, when you finally feel safe, that's when I'll strike." "We've been watching for him," Marcus said, exhaustion and worry making his voice rough. "No movement, no chatter, nothing. Until now. If he has Crystal..." "He's been planning this for 3 years," Damon finished, the realization settling like ice in his stomach. "Waiting, watching. He must have found Crystal recently, confirmed she mattered to me, confirmed there was a child. How would he even know about her? You ended things 9 years ago. You've kept your distance." Damon picked up the engagement ring from his desk, where he'd placed it after Diana fell asleep. The diamond caught the lamplight, throwing tiny rainbows across the dark wood. Crystal wore this on a chain around her neck, never took it off. If Viktor's people were surveilling her, watching her, they would have seen it, investigated, found the connection to me, found the jeweler's records, put together the timeline. So he grabs her, waits for you to find out and come running. Marcus's expression was grim. "Except you didn't know she was alive. You thought she'd been dead for over a year. But he knew about Diana." Damon's voice went cold, the temperature in the room dropping. "That's his real leverage. He took the mother to draw out the child. He wants me to know he can destroy them both whenever he chooses. Marcus was quiet for a moment. What's the play, boss? We find Crystal, before Victor decides to send me pieces of her as a message. We don't know where he's holding her. We don't even know if she's still in Illinois. Damon looked at the music box sitting on his desk, the lid still open, the mechanism frozen mid-melody. Diana had carried it through a storm, had protected it even while soaked and shivering and terrified. Crystal had given it to their daughter with specific instructions. Crystal had been a concert-level pianist since childhood. Codes, patterns, music theory. It was all mathematics to her, all logic and structure hidden inside beauty. If she knew she was being taken, if she had even seconds to prepare. He examined the box more carefully, lifting the velvet interior where the ring had rested. Underneath, almost invisible unless you were looking for it, were tiny marks scratched into the wood. Letters carved with something sharp. Maybe the pin of her own necklace. June, Barrington, Thursdays. Why this piece? Damon murmured, more to himself than Marcus. Crystal's favorite from the seasons was always October, Autumn Song. She said it reminded her of her grandmother. Why would she choose June instead? Marcus leaned closer, squinting at the scratches. What does it mean? June, Barrington. Damon's mind was racing now, connecting pieces. Barrington is a town, north suburb, horse country, about an hour from here. Wealthy estates, privacy, lots of land. Marcus was already pulling up property records on his tablet. Sokolov owns property under shell companies all over Illinois. Dozens of holdings. Let me cross-reference Barrington specifically. 3 minutes of tense silence. Then, here. Estate purchased 18 months ago under Baltic Holdings LLC. 50 acres, main house plus 2 guest cottages. Completely private. No neighbors within half a mile. Registered to a Victor Petrov. Wait, Petrov was his mother's maiden name. Damon's voice was deadly quiet. He's been planning this since before Crystal even knew she was being hunted. Buying property, setting up the perfect prison, waiting for his moment. And Thursdays? Marcus asked, looking at the scratched message again. I don't know yet, but Crystal wouldn't have included it unless it mattered. Damon closed the music box gently, reverently. We move tomorrow night, quietly. Small team, no army. If Victor thinks we're coming in force, he'll kill her before we get through the gate. And the girl? Damon looked toward the ceiling, toward the room where Diana slept in a bed bigger than the entire apartment she'd shared with her mother. She stays here, guarded, protected. But even as he said it, he knew his daughter. He'd seen that stubborn set to her jaw, that fierce determination in eyes identical to his own. Diana had walked through a storm alone to find him, had been brave enough to knock on the gate of Chicago's most dangerous man because her mother told her to. She wouldn't sit quietly in a mansion while Crystal's life hung in the balance. She had his blood after all. And Crystal's courage. God help them both. Morning came too quickly. Pale light filtering through. Heavy curtains Diana hadn't figured out how to fully close. She woke disoriented, confused by the softness beneath her and the silence pressing down like a physical weight. At home, the studio apartment she'd shared with Mom for as long as she could remember, the mattress had springs that poked through the thin padding, guaranteed to wake you if you rolled over. The neighbor upstairs played salsa music starting at 6 a.m. The couple next door fought in Portuguese every morning like clockwork. The window faced another building so close Diana could see the peeling paint on the bricks. This room had a bed softer than clouds, windows showing actual sky and trees, and silence so complete it made her ears ring. For 3 perfect seconds, Diana forgot. Then memory crashed back. Mom gone, bad men, 21 days missing. And she clutched the music box to her chest, panic rising sharp and hot in her throat. She was in a stranger's house, a mansion belonging to Chicago's most feared crime lord. Except the stranger was her father. She'd known it the moment he opened the gate in the rain. The eyes were unmistakable, dark brown like polished wood, almost black in certain light, looking at her with an intensity that should have been scary but somehow wasn't. Mom had described them exactly. Your father has eyes like midnight, beautiful and a little bit dangerous. Diana slid out of bed, bare feet sinking into carpet so thick it was almost like walking on the grass in the park. She explored cautiously, trained by 8 years of living in a place where you always checked your surroundings. The attached bathroom was all white marble and gold fixtures, bigger than their entire studio apartment. She used the toilet, washed her hands with soap that smelled like pine forests and expensive things, and stared at herself in the mirror. Same dark eyes looking back, same dark hair, though Mom's had that auburn tint Diana's lacked. Same stubborn chin that Mom said came straight from Dad's side. Different nose, though. That was all Mom, small and slightly upturned. But those eyes, undeniable. Diana ventured into the hallway, following the sound of voices downstairs. The mansion felt like a museum, all polished surfaces and artwork that probably cost more than Mom made in a year. Her footsteps were silent on the runner carpet as she descended the curved staircase, one hand trailing along the banister. Damon sat at a dining table long enough to seat 12 people easily, the coffee cup in his large hands, speaking in low tones with the man from last night. Marcus. They both looked up when she appeared in the doorway, and Diana saw them exchange a glance she couldn't quite read. "Morning," Damon said, and the awkwardness in his voice would have been funny if everything wasn't so terrible. He clearly had no idea how to talk to children. "Hi. There's breakfast." He gestured toward a sideboard laden with more food than Diana had seen in one place since the church. Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. Scrambled eggs, bacon, sausages, toast, fresh fruit, orange juice, 3 kinds of jam. Diana filled a plate with shaking hands, trying not to take too much but unable to stop herself. Real bacon, not the sad turkey kind. Eggs that weren't powdered. Strawberries in January. She sat down across from Damon and ate, while both men watched her like she might vanish into smoke. "Did you sleep okay?" Damon asked after a minute of silence. "Yes. The bed is really soft, like sleeping on a cloud." "Good." More silence. Diana ate eggs that tasted better than anything she'd had in months. Real butter. Salt that wasn't from a packet. She could feel them watching, assessing, trying to figure out what to do with her. "Can I see the rest of the house?" she asked suddenly, the question surprising even herself. Damon blinked. "Why?" "Mom used to tell me stories about it, about where you lived. She said it was beautiful, like something from a movie. I want to see if the stories were true." Something shifted in his expression, pain or regret, or maybe both. His jaw tightened. "What did she tell you?" "That you have a library with more books than the public library downtown. That there's a piano that's 100 years old and came from Vienna. That the windows in the main hall show the whole city spread out below like you're standing on top of the world." She remembered all that. "She remembered everything about you," Diana said quietly, watching him. "She told me stories every night before bed. Not fairy tales. Stories about you. About a man who lived in a beautiful house but was very lonely. About how he tried to be cold and scary but underneath he had a warm heart. About how he loved music but never played anymore because it made him too sad." Damon's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully, hands not quite steady. "Your mother said those things?" "Every night. She said when I was old enough to understand, she'd explain why you weren't with us. Why she loved you but couldn't be with you. She said it was complicated. Diana picked at her eggs. I'm 8. I think I'm old enough to understand complicated things now. Diana. You left her to protect her. I get it. You thought your enemies would hurt her to hurt you, so you pushed her away. Diana looked up, meeting his eyes. Her eyes. But you were wrong. Because they found her anyway. And now she's been gone for 21 days and I don't know if she's even alive anymore. The last word cracked, and suddenly Diana was crying. Tears she'd been holding back since the night the bad men came pouring down her face. She'd been so strong, so brave, following Mom's instructions perfectly. Hide in the closet. Don't come out until they're gone. Find Damon Walker if I don't come back. Bring the music box. She'd done everything right. But Mom still wasn't here. Damon stood abruptly, chair scraping against floor, and for a second Diana thought he was leaving. Instead, he walked around the table and knelt beside her chair, bringing himself to her eye level the way he had last night in the rain. Your mother is alive, he said, and his voice had an absolute certainty that cut through her panic. I know she is, and I'm going to find her. I promise you. How can you know? Because Viktor Sokolov, the man who took her, wants me to know he has her. He wants to use her against me. That only works if she's alive. Damon's hands hovered near her shoulders, not quite touching, like he didn't know if he was allowed. He's keeping her alive as leverage. We have time. Diana wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Will you kill him? When you find him. The question was blunt, but she was 8, not stupid. She knew who her father was, knew what he did. Damon didn't insult her by lying. Probably. Does that scare you? No. Diana thought about it honestly. The bad men who took Mom scared me. Them coming back scares me. But you? She shook her head. Mom said you only hurt people who hurt other people first. She said you had rules, lines you don't cross. Your mother told you a lot. She wanted me to know you. Even if I never met you, she wanted me to understand. Diana swallowed hard. After breakfast, will you show me the house? The things Mom told me about? Damon stood, and this time his large hand did settle gently on her shoulder. Yes. Finish eating first. He showed her the library, floor-to-ceiling shelves, covering 3 walls, a rolling ladder to reach the highest books, leather armchairs positioned by a stone fireplace, thousands of books, spines in every color, some so old the titles had faded to gold ghosts. Diana ran her fingers along them reverently. Mom loved libraries, had taken her every Saturday, but they'd never owned more than a dozen books at a time. You can read any of them you want, Damon said, while you're here. While you're here, not your home. Temporary. Diana nodded and didn't say that she wanted to stay forever. He showed her the windows Mom had described. Floor-to-ceiling glass in the main hall showing Chicago spread below in shades of gray and steel and morning light. He showed her his office, all dark wood and leather. The kitchen that could feed an army. 6 guest bedrooms, each one bigger than their whole apartment. They stopped at a door at the end of the hall. Unlike the others, this one was closed. Locked. What's in there? Diana asked. Nothing. Important. But his voice had changed, gotten rougher. Then why is it the only door that's locked? Damon looked down at her, and she saw him wrestling with something. Finally. You don't miss much, do you? Mom taught me to notice things. She said it's important, that noticing keeps you safe. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled a key from his pocket and unlocked the door, pushed it open slowly, like it might hurt. This was my sister's room. Diana stepped inside and felt time stop. It was a child's room. Pink comforter on a small bed, stuffed animals lined up on shelves with military precision, books arranged by color, drawings taped to the walls with yellowing tape. A ballet poster, a desk with a pencil cup shaped like a castle, a music box on the dresser, twin to the one Mom had given Diana. But dust covered everything. The air smelled stale, locked up. The curtains were drawn. Nothing had been touched in years. What happened to her? Diana asked, even though she could feel the grief pressing down like a physical weight. Fire. House fire when we were 7. I got out. She didn't. Diana walked to the wall, where drawings were taped. Crayon pictures of 2 stick figures holding hands, names written in a child's uncertain letters, Damon and Sophia, hearts and stars drawn all around them. She loved you, Diana said softly. I couldn't save her. Damon's voice was barely above a whisper. Our father was drunk, fell asleep with a cigarette burning. The house went up fast. I woke up first, tried to wake Sophia, but the smoke was too thick. I ran for help. By the time the firefighters got in, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Diana turned to face him. You were 7 years old. How could you have saved her? I should have tried harder. Should have dragged her. Should have... You would have died too. Then nobody would have gotten out. Damon's hands clenched at his sides. Maybe that would have been better. No. Diana's voice was fierce, surprising herself. Because then you wouldn't be here to save Mom. And I'd be alone. And Sophia wouldn't want that. She loved you. Look at all these pictures. She wouldn't want you to die. Damon stared at this 8-year-old child who somehow understood more about grief than most adults. Is that why you push people away? Diana pressed. Mom said you left her because you were afraid. Afraid that loving her meant she'd die too. Like your sister. Like your mom. Your mother told you about my mother? She said your mom died when you were 10. That she was kind and beautiful and played the violin. That after she died, you had nobody except your dad and he wasn't good. Damon's jaw worked. No, he wasn't. Diana walked to him, small hand reaching for his larger one. She took it, and he looked down in surprise at the contact. Mom said you think you're not good either, but she said you're wrong. She said you have the kindest heart she ever knew. You're just scared to let people see it. Something in Damon's expression cracked. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level again, and Diana saw his eyes were bright with tears he wouldn't let fall. I'm going to find your mother, he said, and it sounded like a holy vow. But it's dangerous, Diana. Very dangerous. I need you to stay here where you're safe, where Marcus and my security team can protect you. Diana shook her head. No, I'm going with you. Absolutely not. You need me. You're 8 years old. And you didn't even know where Mom was until I showed you. Diana crossed her arms, his gesture, his stubbornness. Mom left me the music box for a reason. She knew I'd bring it to you. Maybe there's more clues I'm supposed to help you find. Maybe I'm part of the plan. Diana interrupted. I can do something you can't. Damon frowned. What? I can play piano. Without waiting for response, she turned and walked back downstairs. Damon followed, confused, until Diana stopped, in the living room. The piano sat in the corner. A massive Steinway grand, black lacquer polished to a mirror shine, looking untouched for years. Diana had noticed it during the tour, but hadn't said anything. She walked to it now, like approaching something sacred. Lifted the fallboard carefully, revealing ivory keys yellowed slightly with age but still beautiful. "Mom taught me," she said quietly, sitting on the bench, adjusting her position like she'd been shown. "Every single night, even when we were so tired, even when we couldn't afford to eat dinner, we'd practice on her keyboard. The hotel let her take it home on her nights off. She said music was the only thing no one could ever steal from us. That once it was inside you, it was yours forever." She placed small hands on the keys, closed her eyes, and played. Tchaikovsky's June filled the room. The same piece from the music box, but richer, fuller, alive under Diana's fingers. She made mistakes. She was 8, self-taught, playing from memory and grief, but the soul of it was there. The ache, the longing, the love that refused to die even across years of separation. Crystal's gift, passed to their daughter. Damon stood frozen, transported back 15 years to when Sophia had sat at this same piano, fumbling through Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, laughing at her own mistakes, making him laugh too in those rare moments before everything shattered. He'd locked the piano after she died. Couldn't bear to hear it. Couldn't bear the silence where music used to be. But now Diana was playing it, and instead of pain, he felt something else. Something that might have been hope. Diana finished, the final notes fading into silence. She looked up at him, dark eyes shining. "Mom said music is how we talk when words aren't enough. She said you'd understand that, because your sister loved music too. Because you both did, before you decided you weren't allowed to anymore." Damon's chest was being crushed. "How do you know about Sophia?" "Mom told me everything. She said you carry so much pain, but underneath, there's a man who loves so much it scares him. She said you're afraid that everyone you love dies, so you decided to love nobody. But that's not protecting them. That's just being alone." She was right. Crystal was right. Damon had spent 15 years terrified of loving anyone because everyone he loved was taken. His mother, his sister, and then Crystal herself when he'd pushed her away. But here was Diana, brave and small and playing his dead sister's piano, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Okay," Damon said, his voice rough. "Okay, what?" "You can come with me tonight. But Diana..." He knelt again, taking her small hands in his. "You do exactly what I say. When I say hide, you hide. When I say run, you run. Your job is to stay alive, understand? Your mother would never forgive me if something happened to you. I'd never forgive myself." Diana's face lit up like the sun. "Really? I can come?" "Your mother left you clues. You might see something I miss." He squeezed her hands gently. "But this is dangerous. The man who has your mother wants to hurt me, and if he knows you're my daughter, he'll try to hurt me too. I know." She looked older than 8, eyes solemn and understanding. "But Mom's worth the risk. She's worth everything." Damon looked at his daughter and saw Crystal in every line of her face. The fierce protectiveness, the stubborn courage, the absolute refusal to abandon the people she loved. "Yes," he agreed quietly. "She is." Diana hugged him then, sudden and fierce, small arms wrapping around his neck. Damon froze for a heartbeat before his arms came up to hold her carefully, like she might break. "We're going to save her," Diana whispered against his shoulder. "Together." "Together," Damon agreed. And for the first time in 487 days, he believed it might actually be possible. The hours before nightfall felt endless. Diana spent them memorizing everything she could about the man who might be her only chance to save Mom. Damon Walker moved through his fortress like a king through his kingdom. Every person they passed bowed their head slightly, murmured, "Boss," with respect, edged in fear. But Diana noticed things others probably missed. The way his shoulders were always tense, never fully relaxed even in his own home. The way his eyes scanned every room before entering, cataloging exits. The way he positioned himself. Between her and doorways, an unconscious protective instinct he probably didn't even know he had. He was afraid, not of enemies or violence, of failing, of losing people again, just like Mom said. Marcus brought maps, blueprints, surveillance photos. They spread across Damon's office desk like a puzzle missing pieces. The Barrington estate was a fortress of its own. 50 acres of wooded property, single-access road, main house surrounded by guest cottages that Victor's guards occupied. Security cameras, motion sensors, a perimeter fence that was more decoration than defense, but still meant they'd be spotted the moment they approached. "He wants me to know where she is," Damon said, studying the layouts. "The music box was an invitation. He's expecting me." "Could be a trap," Marcus warned. "It's definitely a trap." Damon's smile was cold. "Question is whether we're walking into it or turning it around." Diana stood on her toes, trying to see the papers. Damon noticed and lifted her easily, setting her on the edge of the desk where she could see everything. "Mom scratched 3 things in the music box," Diana said, pointing. "June, that's the song and the suburb. Barrington, that's the town. But what about Thursdays?" "We don't know yet," Damon admitted. Diana studied the surveillance photos. Viktor Sokolov looked exactly like a villain from the movies Mom didn't let her watch. Cold eyes, cruel mouth, expensive suit that couldn't hide the violence. Underneath, the photos showed him coming and going from the Barrington estate at different times, always with guards. "There," Marcus said, pointing to a series of dated images. "Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. like clockwork. He leaves the estate with only 2 guards instead of his usual 6. Gone for 3 hours. Returns by noon. Where does he go?" "We haven't been able to track him. He switches vehicles, uses back roads." Diana tilted her head, studying the pattern. "What if he's not going? Somewhere? What if he's meeting someone?" Both men looked at her. "Every Thursday," she continued, working it out. "Same time. That's a schedule. Businessmen have schedules for important meetings. Mom used to work Thursday mornings at a different hotel before the Palmer House, and she said those were executive breakfast meetings. Important people who wanted privacy." Damon's eyes sharpened. Victor's meeting with someone. Someone important enough he reduces security. Someone who wouldn't appreciate a show of force. Marcus was already pulling up intelligence files. If he's meeting with someone local, someone with power, politicians, business partners, other families, or buyers, Damon said quietly. Victor deals in arms and trafficking. What if Thursday mornings he's showing merchandise to potential buyers? And he doesn't want an armed escort because that would look unprofessional. Diana felt sick. Merchandise. Mom was a person, not merchandise. But Damon's hand settled on her shoulder, steady and warm. "Which means tomorrow morning, Victor won't be at the estate. He'll be at his meeting with reduced security. That's our window." "We go in Thursday morning," Marcus confirmed. "Hit them when the boss is gone, when they're not expecting daytime movement." Exactly. Damon was already planning, his mind clearly racing through scenarios. Small team, fast extraction, in and out before Victor even knows his trap fell apart. They worked through the details. Entry, points, contingency plans, equipment needed. Diana listened to it all, absorbing the language of violence that was apparently her inheritance. But underneath the tactical discussion, she heard the fear Damon wouldn't voice. What if they were too late? What if Victor had already hurt Mom? What if the music box had been planted after she was already dead? As if reading her mind, Damon pulled up a chair beside the desk where Diana sat. "Hey, look at me." She did. "Your mother is smart. Smarter than me, definitely smarter than Victor. She survived 21 days because she's strong. She left you those clues because she knew you'd find me, knew I'd figure it out. His dark eyes, her eyes, were absolutely certain. We're going to get her back, I promise. You keep saying that, promising, because I mean it, and because your mother was right. I always keep my promises, even when they're hard, especially when they're hard. Diana believed him. She didn't have much choice. Dinner was quiet, just the three of them. Damon, Diana, Marcus. Real food again, more than Diana could eat even though she tried. Chicken that wasn't frozen, vegetables that weren't from a can, bread that was still warm. Afterward, Damon took her back upstairs. You should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I can't sleep. I'm too nervous. He hesitated in the doorway of the guest suite, clearly uncertain. Then, do you want me to stay? Until you fall asleep? Diana nodded, and Damon pulled a yell, chair beside the bed, sitting with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He looked exhausted, older than his years, carrying weight that must be crushing. Tell me about her, Diana said quietly. About Mom, when you knew her before. Before I left her, you mean? Yeah. Damon was quiet for a long time. Then, I met your mother at a charity gala. I was there for business. Mob business, making appearances, showing force. She was playing piano for the event. Strauss waltzes, background music. Nobody was supposed to actually listen to. He smiled slightly at the memory. But I listened, couldn't stop listening. She played like every note mattered, like the music was the only thing in the world that was real. She still plays that way, Diana whispered. I know. I can hear it in you. Damon's voice was rough. After the gala, I went backstage, told her she was wasted playing for people who weren't paying attention. She laughed at me. Actually laughed, right in the face of Chicago's most dangerous mob boss. Said music wasn't about the audience. It was about honoring the composer, about adding her voice to something that had outlived the person who wrote it. Diana could hear Mom saying exactly that. I took her to dinner, then another dinner. Then she played for me privately, just me, in her apartment that was barely bigger than a closet. She played the seasons, all 12 pieces, one for each month. Took her 3 hours. I sat there the whole time just listening. Nobody had ever given me something that beautiful before. No strings attached, no agenda. She fell in love with you, Diana said. And I fell in love with her. Completely. The kind of love that changes you. Damon's jaw tightened. That's why I left. Because my enemies were closing in. Because people I loved had a habit of dying violently. I thought if I pushed her away, if I made her hate me, she'd be safe. But she didn't hate you. She wore your ring every day. I didn't know that until yesterday. They sat in silence. Diana's eyes were getting heavy despite her nervousness. Dad? The word slipped out without her meaning it to. Damon's breath caught. Yeah? Tomorrow, when we find Mom, will you tell her you still love her? Diana. Because she still loves you. She never stopped. And I think maybe she kept me a secret because she was trying to protect you too. From having to choose. From having to risk us. Damon's hand came up to cover his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was thick. Yes, I'll tell her. Promise? I promise. Diana finally let her eyes close. Just before sleep took her, she felt the gentlest touch on her hair. Damon's hand, smoothing it back like Mom used to do, like maybe he was remembering how to be a father, one small gesture at a time. Sleep, little one, he murmured. Tomorrow we bring your mother home. Thursday morning arrived cold and gray, winter sun struggling through clouds that promised snow later. Diana woke to Marcus at her door, already dressed in tactical black, telling her they left in 20 minutes. She dressed quickly in clothes that had appeared somehow, jeans that actually fit, a warm sweater, real winter coat with no holes, tennis shoes that weren't falling apart. She stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl looking back. Yesterday she'd been poor. Today she looked normal. Except nothing about today was normal. Downstairs, Damon was checking weapons with an efficiency that should have been scary, but wasn't. Diana had grown up in Chicago. She knew what guns looked like, had learned young to recognize the different kinds, to know when to run and when to hide. He saw her watching and immediately set the pistol down. "You'll stay in the car, with Marcus. You don't get out unless I come get you. Understand?" "Yes." "Diana, I mean it. If something goes wrong, if we're not back in 30 minutes, Marcus drives you straight back here. Not to the police, not to a hospital. Here, where you're protected. Okay?" But Damon knelt down, taking her shoulders. "Promise me. Really promise." Diana met his eyes. "I promise I'll do whatever keeps me safest, so I can see Mom again." It wasn't quite the promise he'd asked for, but he nodded anyway. The drive to Barrington took 45 minutes through early morning traffic. Diana sat in the back of an armored SUV, watching Chicago give way to suburbs, then to countryside, then to estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. Marcus drove with Damon beside him, 3 more men in a second vehicle behind them. Small team. Fast extraction. Diana clutched the music box in her lap, thumb rubbing circles on the worn wood. Mom had touched this, had carved the secret message inside, had trusted Diana to get it to Damon, had planned for this exact moment. Please let her still be alive. They parked half a mile from the estate, hidden in a wooded area off the main road. Damon checked his watch. 9:15. Victor left 20 minutes ago. According to our spotter, we have 2.5 hours before he returns. Team 1, you're with me on main house entry. Team 2, you secure the perimeter and watch for early return. Marcus, you stay here with Diana. Engine running. Clear?" Everyone nodded. Damon turned to Diana one more time. "I'm bringing your mother back." "I know." He touched her cheek briefly, a gesture so gentle it almost broke her heart. And then he was gone, melting into the trees with his team like ghosts. Marcus sat in the driver's seat, binoculars trained on the estate. Diana could just barely see it through the trees, a massive stone house that looked like it belonged in Europe, not Illinois. Minutes ticked by like hours. Diana watched Marcus watch the house, noticed the way his jaw clenched, the way his knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "You're worried," she said. "Always am when the boss puts himself at risk. He's really good at this though, right? The dangerous stuff? Best I've ever seen. But even the best can get unlucky." More minutes. Diana counted them. 5, 10, 15. Then Marcus's radio crackled. Damon's voice came through, tense. "We've got a problem." Marcus grabbed the radio. "What problem?" "The house is empty. No guards, no prisoners. It's been cleared out, recently within the last 12 hours. They knew we were coming." Diana's blood ran cold. "But the music box was bait," Damon's voice said, and she realized the radio was on open channel. He was talking to her too. "Diana, did your mother say anything else? Anything at all about where she was being taken? What she saw?" Diana closed her eyes, reaching back through 3 weeks of fear and confusion. She said she heard water, running water like a river, and she smelled horses. She told me to remember in case it mattered. Silence on the radio. Then Damon's voice, sharp with realization. The guest cottages. They're not for guests. They're stables. Converted horse. Stables. Victor keeps them for show. And there's a creek running through the back of the property. Boss, the blueprints show those were cleared out years ago. That's why they'd use them. Diana, you're brilliant. Stay there. We're checking the stables. More excruciating minutes. Diana counted heartbeats instead because minutes were too slow. Then, we've got her. She's alive. Unconscious but breathing. Get the car ready. We're coming out hot. Marcus started the engine, and Diana's heart nearly exploded with relief. Mom, alive. But the relief died when she heard gunfire through the radio. Sharp cracks, men shouting. They had backup hidden. Damon's voice. Fall back to... The radio cut to static. No, Diana whispered. No, no, no. Marcus was already moving, throwing the SUV into drive. Stay down. We're going in. But he said to stay. Your father's pinned down and I'm not leaving him. Marcus's voice was steel. So you stay in this car. You lock the doors behind me. And you... Do not get out for anyone except me or your father. Clear? Diana nodded, terrified. They roared up the access road. Marcus pulled up to a side entrance, grabbed 2 weapons. Lock the doors. Now. He was gone before Diana could respond. She locked the doors with shaking hands and crouched down in the footwell, making herself as small as possible. Outside, gunfire echoed. Men were shouting in English and Russian. The SUV's armored windows showed flashes of movement, but she couldn't tell who was. Who? Then everything went quiet. Diana held her breath. A face appeared at the window. Not Marcus. Not Damon. A man she didn't recognize, trying the door handle. He saw her, smiled, pulled out a gun and aimed at the window. Diana screamed. The gunshot was deafening even through armored glass. The window cracked but held. Then Damon was there, appearing like an avenging angel, tackling the man away from the car. They went down hard, and Diana saw her father fight with a brutality that should have terrified her but instead felt like safety. The man didn't get back up. Damon yanked open the car door. He was bleeding from somewhere, shirt torn, but his eyes were clear. Out, now. We've got to move. Diana scrambled out and he grabbed her hand, pulling her toward one of the outbuildings. Inside, Marcus knelt beside a figure on the floor. Mom. Diana's world narrowed to that single point. Crystal lay on the ground, unconscious, arms bound, face bruised but recognizably her. Auburn hair, matted with dirt and blood. Breathing shallow but steady. Alive. Mom! Diana crashed to her knees beside her. Crystal's eyes fluttered, opened slightly, focused with difficulty on Diana's face. Baby? Her voice was barely a whisper. Diana? I'm here. I found Dad like you said. We came to get you. Crystal's eyes moved past Diana to where Damon knelt on her other side, and something extraordinary happened on her battered face. She smiled. Damon? She breathed. You came. Always, he said, roughly. I'll always come for you. Then Marcus was there. Boss, we've got incoming. Victor's back early. We've got maybe 2 minutes. Damon didn't hesitate. He lifted Crystal carefully, cradling her like she weighed nothing despite her being unconscious again. Move. Now. They ran. Diana had never run so fast in her life. Marcus in front, Damon carrying Mom behind her, footsteps pounding. She heard cars, more shouting, bullets hitting trees as they crashed through the woods. Then they were at the SUV. Marcus threw open the back door, and Damon settled Crystal inside as gently as possible despite the urgency. Diana scrambled in beside her, and Damon was in after them. Marcus already flooring the accelerator before the door even closed. They flew down back roads, Marcus driving like he was racing death itself. Behind them, headlights appeared. Victor's men, giving chase. "How many?" Damon asked, checking Crystal's pulse, her breathing. 3 vehicles, maybe 12 men total. "Can we lose them?" "Working on it." Diana held Mom's hand, willing her to wake up fully, to be okay, to be safe. Crystal's eyes opened again, slightly more focused this time. "Diana," she whispered, "my brave girl." "We got you, Mom. We're going home." "Home?" Crystal's gaze found Damon's face. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Yes," Damon said, and there was so much weight in that single word. "That's exactly what we're calling it." Marcus took a turn at 70 miles per hour that threw them all against the doors. The pursuing vehicles fell back slightly, not willing to risk the same speed. "We're almost clear," Marcus said. 5 more minutes and we're in Chicago proper. They won't follow into our territory." Those 5 minutes lasted forever. But then they were crossing into the city, and sure enough, the headlights behind them fell away. Victor's men wouldn't risk an open confrontation in Walker territory. Not today. Diana sagged against the seat, exhausted, terrified, relieved all at once. Mom was alive. They'd gotten her back. But when Diana looked at Crystal's face, at the bruises and cuts and shadows of whatever she'd endured, she knew this wasn't over. Victor was still out there, and he would want revenge. The Walker estate had a medical facility that would make most hospitals jealous. Diana learned this as Dr. Rivera worked on Mom in a room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Machines beeping softly, IV drip steady. "She's severely dehydrated," Elena reported, speaking to Damon, while her hands moved with practiced efficiency. "Malnourished, multiple contusions, 3 cracked ribs, evidence of electrical burns on her wrists, torture devices. But nothing life-threatening if we treat it properly. She's stable." Diana sat in the corner, knees pulled to chest, watching Mom sleep. "They'd given her something for pain," Elena said. "She'd wake up in a few hours." Damon stood at the window, silhouette dark against morning light. He hadn't moved in 20 minutes, just stood there staring out at Chicago like the city held answers. "You should clean yourself up," Elena said gently, packing her supplies. "You're still bleeding." He touched his side where his shirt was torn and red. "It's nothing. It's a bullet graze. Let me at least bandage it. Later." Elena looked at Diana, and something passed between them. A silent agreement to leave the stubborn man alone. She squeezed Diana's shoulder on her way out. "Your mother is strong. She'll be okay." Diana nodded, not trusting her voice. Alone now, except for the sleeping woman and the brooding man. Diana stood and walked to the bed, taking Mom's hand carefully to avoid the IV. "Mom," she whispered. "Can you hear me?" Crystal's fingers twitched, her eyelids fluttered. "I found him, just like you said. I brought the music box and he figured out where you were." Diana's voice cracked. "I was so scared." Damon turned from the window, walked to the other side of the bed and looked down at Crystal with an expression Diana couldn't quite read. Pain and relief, and something that looked like devotion wrapped in fear. "She really kept the ring," he said quietly. "Every day. She told me it was her most precious thing besides me. I gave it back. When I left, I tried to return it to the jeweler." Diana looked up at him. She bought it from him. Used money she'd been saving for Juilliard. She said it was worth more than any scholarship. Damon closed his eyes like he'd been struck. They sat vigil together, the broken man and the brave child, watching the woman they both loved sleep. Hours passed. Elena checked in twice, Marcus brought food Diana couldn't eat. Finally, as afternoon sun slanted through windows, Crystal stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, confused at first, then focused. Found Diana first, then Damon. "Hey, baby," she whispered to Diana. "Mom." Diana couldn't stop the tears. "You're really okay." "I'm really okay." Crystal tried to sit up, winced, gave up. "How long?" "You've been out about 6 hours. We got you this morning." Diana squeezed her hand. "I was so brave, Mom, just like you taught me." "I knew you would be." Crystal's eyes moved to Damon. "And you came. Did you think I wouldn't?" "I thought you believed I was dead." Crystal's voice was rough, damaged from screaming or smoke or both. "I thought maybe you'd moved on. Found someone else. It's been 9 years, Damon. There was never anyone else." The room felt too small suddenly, too intimate. Diana stood. "I'm going to get water for Mom." "Diana." "It's okay, Mom. I'll be right back." She left them alone because some conversations were private, even when they involved her whole world. In the hallway, Diana leaned against the wall and let herself really cry for the first time since Mom disappeared. Big, gasping sobs that hurt her chest. Marcus found her there, and without a word, he sat down beside her on the floor. "She's going to be okay," he said. "I know, but she got hurt. Because of him. Because she loved him." "Yeah, but she also got saved because of him." Diana wiped her eyes. "Do you think he'll leave again? After she's better? To protect her?" Marcus considered this. "Your father's a lot of things, but he's not stupid enough to make the same mistake twice. He thought losing her once would kill him. Turns out he was right. He's been dead inside for 9 years. Now he's got a chance to be alive again." He looked down at Diana. "Plus, he's got you now. And I don't think he could walk away from his daughter even if he wanted to. I don't want him to leave." "Then tell him that." Inside the room, Damon and Crystal were talking in low voices. Diana couldn't hear words, but she could hear the emotion. Raw and real, and years overdue. She gave them 20 more minutes. Then, taking a breath for courage, she walked back in. They both looked up. Mom was crying but smiling. Damon's hand was wrapped around hers like he'd never let go again. "Diana," Mom said, and her voice was stronger now. "Come here." Diana climbed carefully onto the bed, and Mom wrapped her free arm around her. "You did everything I told you. You were so brave." "I was scared." "Being brave means being scared and doing it anyway." Mom kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you." "Are you going to leave again?" Diana asked, the question bursting out before she could stop it. "When you're better? Are you going to take me away so we're safe from his enemies?" Mom and Damon exchanged a look. "No," Crystal said firmly. "We're not leaving. We're staying. Here, together. All 3 of us." "But what about Victor? He's still out there. He'll come back." "Let him try," Damon said, and there was ice in his voice. "This is my city, my territory. He made a mistake taking you both. He showed me what I have to lose. Now I'm going to show him what happens when someone threatens my family." "Family?" Crystal repeated softly. "Is that what we are?" Damon looked at her, then at Diana, then back. "Yes, if you'll have me. If you can forgive me for being too stupid and scared to see it 9 years ago." "There's nothing to forgive," Crystal said. "You thought you were protecting me. You were wrong, but you meant well." Diana said the same thing. "She's a smart kid, learned from the best." Mom smiled through tears. "But Damon, if we do this, if we're really a family. You can't push me away again when things get scary. You can't decide for me what risks I'm willing to take. We make decisions together or not at all. Deal. No hesitation. And you have to promise me something. Anything. Crystal's voice went fierce. You teach our daughter to protect herself, to be strong. But you also teach her that violence isn't the answer to everything, that there's a difference between defending yourself and becoming what you're fighting against. Damon was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Diana. I promise. She'll know both sides. How to fight when necessary. How to choose peace when possible. Diana felt something settle in her chest. A weight she'd been carrying for 3 weeks finally lifting. Okay, she said. Okay, we're a family. They stayed like that, the 3 of them together on the hospital bed, until Elena came back and scolded them for crowding the patient. But even then, even when Diana had to leave so Mom could rest, Damon stayed. Pulled a chair beside the bed and took Crystal's hand and didn't let go. Diana watched from the doorway and smiled. They were going to be okay. They were going to be a family. And anyone who tried to take that away would learn exactly how dangerous Damon Walker could be when protecting the people he loved. 3 months later, winter had softened into early spring. Chicago remained cold, but the kind of cold that promised warmth eventually instead of threatening to last forever. Diana stood in what used to be Sophia's room, but was now hers. They'd cleaned it together, she, Mom, and Dad, taking down the old drawings gently, packing away the stuffed animals in a memory box that Damon said he'd keep forever. They'd painted the walls pale purple at Diana's request, gotten new furniture, new bedding. But they'd kept the music box on the dresser, and the drawings in frames on one wall, because Sophia deserved to be remembered, and because Diana wanted to know the aunt she'd never meet. Diana, breakfast! Mom's voice floated upstairs, and Diana smiled at how normal it sounded. Downstairs, the IA kitchen was warm and bright. Mom stood at the stove making pancakes, her auburn hair catching morning light. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost during those 3 weeks in captivity, though sometimes Diana still caught her staring at nothing, lost in memories that probably weren't pleasant. They'd talked about it, about PTSD, about triggers, about how healing wasn't linear. Mom was in therapy twice a week, and Diana went too, learning how to process the fear and trauma in healthy ways. Dad sat at the table reading the newspaper, coffee steaming beside him. He looked up when Diana entered and smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes now, so different from the haunted expression he'd worn when they first met. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, and Diana still got a little thrill hearing him call her that. "Morning, Dad." She sat beside him, and Mom brought pancakes, kissing Diana's head before setting the plate down. Then she kissed Damon's head too, casual and intimate in the way married people were. They'd gotten married 6 weeks ago, quietly, just the 3 of them and Marcus as witness. Diana had worn a new dress and cried happy tears, and Mom and Dad had exchanged the same vows they would have exchanged 9 years ago if fear hadn't gotten in the way. "I have a recital next week," Diana announced, cutting into her pancakes. "We're playing the seasons. Ms. Petrova assigned me June." "Of course she did," Mom laughed. "That piece is in your blood now." Diana had been taking proper piano lessons for 2 months now, and her teacher said she had remarkable talent for someone who'd been self-taught for so long. Mom still taught her too. Evenings at the living room Steinway that wasn't silent anymore. Sometimes Dad would sit and listen, and Diana could see him remembering Sophia, remembering a time when music meant family instead of loss. "We'll all be there," Dad said, setting aside the newspaper. "Front row." "You don't have to." "Yes, we do." He reached over and ruffled her hair. "That's what families do. They show up." After breakfast, Diana helped Mom clean up while Dad took a phone call in his office. Marcus had reported last week that Viktor Sokolov had been found dead in Moscow. Apparent suicide, though everyone knew better. The kind of suicide that happened when you made too many enemies and ran out of places to hide. Dad had made sure Viktor knew exactly who was coming for him. Had made sure he spent his last days afraid, the way Mom had. Been afraid, the way Diana had been afraid. Some people called it revenge. Dad called it justice. Either way, the threat was over. "Mom," Diana said as they dried dishes together, "are you happy?" Mom paused, looking at her. "Yes, truly happy, for the first time in a very long time." "Why?" "Because you gave up so much. Juilliard, performing, everything. You could have had a big career if you hadn't had me." Mom set down the dish she was holding and knelt in front of Diana, taking her hands. "Listen to me very carefully. You are not a sacrifice. You are not something I gave up my dreams for. You are the dream. You and your father and this chaotic, complicated, beautiful family. This is everything I ever wanted. But the music. I still have music. I play every day. I teach you. I perform at charity events when I want to. I have music on my terms now, and that's worth more than any stage." Mom's eyes were fierce. "Don't ever think you cost me anything, Diana. You saved me. You saved me." Diana hugged her tight. Dad appeared in the doorway. "I have to go out for a few hours. Business. But I'll be back by dinner." "Dangerous business?" Mom asked, and Diana heard the worry underneath. "No, just boring meetings. Territory management, legitimate construction contracts." He crossed to them and kissed Mom properly, the kind of kiss that made Diana roll her eyes and smile. "I'll have my phone on. Marcus is here if you need anything." "We'll be fine. Diana and I are going to practice for the recital." After he left, they settled at the piano. Mom adjusted Diana's posture, reminded her to curve her fingers, guided her through the complicated passages of June with endless patience. "You know," Mom said during a break, "your father never got to hear me play. Not really. Not since we got back together. I've been thinking maybe I should play something for him. Something special." "Like what?" "Like October. Autumn Song. The one I told him was my favorite all those years ago. Will you play it for me first, so I can hear what it sounds like when you do it?" Mom smiled and switched positions, letting Diana sit beside her on the bench. Then she began to play. The music filled the house, warm and melancholy, speaking of change and loss and things that were beautiful because they were temporary. Diana watched Mom's hands move across the keys and understood why Dad had fallen in love with her. There was something magical about the way she played, like she was having a conversation with the piano, both of them telling a story together. When the last notes faded, they both heard clapping. Dad stood in the doorway. He must have come back early, with an expression on his face Diana had never seen before. Something like wonder. "I thought you had meetings," Mom said. "They can wait." He crossed to the piano. "I haven't heard you play like that in 9 years. I forgot how beautiful it was. It's October. My favorite. I remember." He sat on Mom's other side, and Diana was sandwiched between her parents at the piano bench. "Play it again, please." So Mom played it again, and this time Dad's arm went around both of them, holding his family close while the music washed over them all. Diana thought about everything that had led to this moment. The storm and the music box and the message scratched in wood. The fear and the bravery and the desperate run through the woods. The pain and the healing and the choice to be a family despite everything that tried to stop them. Mom had been right. Love was worth fighting for. Worth risking everything for. Worth 9 years of pain and loneliness if it meant finding your way back eventually. The music ended and they sat in comfortable silence. "Thank you," Dad said finally. "For what?" Mom asked. "For not giving up on me, for keeping that ring, for teaching our daughter to be brave enough to find me." His voice was rough with emotion. "For giving me another chance." "Always," Mom said simply. "I'll always give you another chance. That's what love means." Diana leaned into both of them, feeling safer than she'd ever felt in her 8 years of life. No more studio apartments with broken heaters. No more wondering where the next meal would come from. No more lying awake afraid that the bad men would come back. Just family, and music, and home. Later that night, after Diana was supposedly asleep, she crept to the top of the stairs and listened to her parents talking in the living room below. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Mom asked. "With everything she's seen? Everything she knows about what you do? She's strong, like you. And we'll make sure she knows she has choices, that she doesn't have to follow this path just because it's mine. What if she wants to? What if she grows up and decides she wants to be part of your world? Then I'll teach her to be smarter than I was, to lead with strategy instead of violence, to build something better than what I inherited." Dad paused. "But honestly, I hope she chooses something else. Music, maybe. Or anything that doesn't involve looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life. She's got time to figure it out. She's only 8. Yeah, we've got time now. That's the gift she gave us. Time together. A real future." Diana smiled and crept back to bed. She didn't know what she wanted to be when she grew up. Maybe a pianist like Mom. Maybe something else entirely. But she knew one thing for certain. She'd been brave once, and she could be brave again if she needed to be. Because that's what family did. They showed up when it mattered. They fought for each other. They chose love even when fear made it hard. And that was enough. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expected. Sometimes they're the ones we had to be brave enough to find. Diana knocked on the wrong gate, or maybe it was exactly the right one, and everything changed. Her mother survived 3 weeks of captivity by leaving breadcrumbs in a music box. Her father spent 487 days believing he'd lost everything, only to discover he'd gained a daughter who had his eyes and her mother's courage. And together, they became something none of them could have been alone. A family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real, and worth fighting for. The most dangerous men aren't the ones who hurt people. They're the ones who love so completely that they'll destroy anyone who threatens their family. Damon Walker learned that the hard way. And he learned something else too. That the strongest thing he'd ever done wasn't killing his enemies. It was dropping to his knees in the rain and looking his daughter in the eyes and saying, "Yes, I'm your father." Sometimes salvation comes from unexpected places. Sometimes it knocks on your gate in a storm. Sometimes it's 8 years old and carrying a music box with your future hidden inside. If this story touched something in you, we'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Tell us what moment hit you hardest. Hit like to support more stories about broken people finding their way back to love. And subscribe to Redemption Road because we bring you new emotional journeys every single day. Stories about second chances, about families that choose each other, about love that refuses to die even when the world tries to kill it. Before you go, check out the next video or explore our playlist for more tales of redemption and hope. We've got dozens of stories about dangerous men finding their humanity, about brave women refusing to give up, about children who save their parents as much as their parents save them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in second chances. Until next time, remember, the most important question isn't whether you've made mistakes. It's whether you're brave enough to make things right. Good night, and stay hopeful. Even in the darkest moments, love finds a way.